The year 1941 will be a turning point for an old factory in the suburbs of Moscow. Factory number 24, which was built in 1912 and gained fame for the production of aircraft engines, has kept many secrets within its structure throughout history. Located right next to this factory, 19, the Sinovskoye Cemetery, which dates back to the century, has become the final resting place of soldiers who died in wars. In 1930, with the removal of the gravestones and the closure of the cemetery, a testing workshop for the factory was built on top of the cemetery. Shortly after the opening of the workshop, a series of unexplained events occur. The workers who work at the factory complain about the mysterious events that surround the factory. The meaningless sounds heard at night, the moving shadows, and the cold air pockets that appear in unexpected places terrify the workers. Many of them refuse to work the night shift. Despite what the workers tell us, the factory management and the soldiers approach such events with suspicion and do not accept the existence of ghosts. However, over time, the number of workers who claim to have seen ghosts increases. As tensions between Soviet Russia and Nazi Germany decelerate, the factory management takes the situation seriously and suspects that what is happening may be the work of Nazi agents. Perhaps the phenomena that workers describe as ghosts are the cunning games of enemy agents. To test this theory, Ivan Hrapov, a Civil War veteran, is called on duty. A rational and calm personality, Hrapov does not believe in mystical phenomena and rejects the idea of ghosts. According to him, what they see are spies disguised as enemies. Hrapov arrives at the factory in May 1941 and begins to investigate. Although things seem to settle down for a while with Hrapov's presence, the presence of ghosts is soon felt again. No findings can be obtained during the searches made in the workshop. Hrapov decides to do a night patrol at the factory, and one night he hears a worker screaming in fear. When he rushes to the scene, he encounters a sight that is hard to believe. A being resembling a human figure is floating in the room. The being rises suddenly and disappears from sight. Hrapov, in a daze, does not know what to do. Although he knows that his task is to prepare a report, he hesitates about how to explain his observations. Nevertheless, with courage, he writes in his report his belief that a ghost is walking around the factory. The factory management is greatly surprised when they receive the report. This unusual event, witnessed by Ivan Hrapov, spreads quickly through the corridors of the factory. Everyone, looking at each other with fear and curiosity, tries to figure out what is going on deep inside the factory. Hrapov is determined to solve this mystery. He searches every corner of the factory day and night without saying, but he can't find any concrete evidence. Nevertheless, he does not give up and continues to pursue the mystery. On the one hand, it also takes a deeper dive into the history of the factory. He investigates whether the closure of the Semenovskoye Cemetery and the establishment of a test workshop on it were a factor in the events that took place. He thinks about the old beliefs and legends that the souls of soldiers lying in the cemetery are restless. Were these souls from the past part of an old reckoning that did not want to make them forget themselves? As Hropov deepens his research, he realizes that the factory is not only an aircraft engine production site, but also hides many secrets. Once upon a time, there were rumors circulating that this land was not only a cemetery, but also a sacred area where various rituals were performed in ancient times. This information completely changes Hropov's perspective on events. The more we get on top of things, the more the tension inside the factory increases. When Hropov walks alone in the factory at night, between the breeze of cold winds and decipherable whispers, he feels almost as if he is connecting with another world. Meanwhile, other workers at the factory, encouraged by Hropov's determined attitude, begin to share their own experiences. The stories told become more and more complex, like the echoes of past times that remain between the walls of the factory. Deck. One evening, Hropov and a few brave workers organize a nighttime visit to the area where ghosts are most often seen. Armed with flashlights and old Soviet-made detectors, the team proceeds through the dark corridors of the factory. Just then, a fog cloud suddenly appears surrounding them, and a cold wind blows. It becomes as if faint figures from the past appear decently among the lights. The team, whose hearts are filled with fear, feels that time has stopped for a moment, decoupled between these vague figures. However, these figures disappear from view when viewed closely. Hropov and his team continue to search for more evidence after this incident, but they can't find a concrete explanation. What they have experienced is just their own memories and a few scribbles. These mysterious cases remain as a legend in the memory of the factory, becoming a story in which fact and legend are inked. Hropov prepares a report after what happened, but this report is not taken seriously by the factory management. The factory management is concerned about the negative effects of such events on morale and productivity, and tries to cover up the issue. However, Hropov and those who were there that night know that what they experienced was real. Mystery, the old wall of the factory. Although the factory management, which did not take Hropov's report seriously, tries to put aside what happened and focus on their work, the mysterious events deep inside the factory continue. Hropov, on the other hand, experiences a great conflict in his inner world after what he has experienced. While trying to preserve his rational mind and scientific thinking structure, he is trapped between his eyes and the reality of the events he decries. However, his determination to find the truth behind these unusual cases does not diminish in the slightest. One day, while going through the old records of the factory, he discovers that a general buried in the Semnovskoye cemetery, his last wish was to erect a monument on the factory grounds. However, this wish was never fulfilled and was forgotten over time. Rapov thinks that this information may have a connection with the paranormal events that have taken place. Perhaps the soul of this forgotten general is restless because of the failure to keep the promise made to him, and this is one reason for the mysterious events at the factory. With this in mind, although they opposed it at first, upon Rapov's insistence, and the events that have taken place are now beginning to affect production, the management eventually agrees. A monument is erected in a corner of the factory in memory of the old general. With the erection of the monument, a remarkable decrease in the frequency of mysterious events experienced at the factory is observed. A feeling of relief spreads among the workers, and many of them begin to return to their night shifts deck. However, the biggest change is seen in Rapov. After the monument is erected, he no longer experiences those old fearful moments when touring the factory. During night patrols, cold winds and unintelligible whispers are replaced by a silence. Rapov interprets this silence as a sign that the souls of the past have finally found peace. The factory regains its old order again after these events. However, what happened continues to live decently as a legend between the walls of the factory. Although many years have passed, it is underlined to newly hired workers that they need to be careful during night shifts. Rapov's experiences and struggles become a story that is decently told among the factory workers. And so, while the experiences of Rapov and the other workers remain just a story, this old factory, built on the Semnovskoye cemetery, continues to protect its secrets as a bridge between the past and the present. This story carries a message beyond time. Honoring the past can sometimes bring peace and tranquility in unexpected ways. Deck.